Hey, welcome back to the show, Real Estate Excellence Podcast. This is your host, Tracy Hayes. Best of the best is what I promised that I will, and I will deliver that today. My guest today hails from the Bayou, where she was a successful real estate agent, graduated from Loyola University, Summa Cum Laude. We're digging deep in here. I was fortunate enough to spend a few days with her a couple years ago at a John Maxwell event, where ironically both of us signed up, and what a great event it was. The local agents here love her trainings. She's a partner in the Keller Williams Realty Atlantic Partners. Our guest today, Angi Bell. Angi Bell Consulting Coaching has become a highly sought after by the best in real estate in Northeast Florida. Angi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. It's great to be here.
Excellent. I'm so glad you were able to come by. You know, you and I have interacted, really got to spend some time together at the John Maxwell event. We'll talk about that, John Maxwell, and I know, your favorite people there in the personal development world. But we've gotten to know each other and over the last couple of years, and I know a lot of the agents speak very highly of you, especially anyone at Keller Williams. I say, oh, Angi Bell, oh, I gotta love you're the showpiece when it comes into training. I guess they sell out in the office when Angie's in there. But let's dig back a little bit so we learn a little bit about you. Let's go back circa high school. Where are you at? What's going on in your world? What's your vision? Let's start there.
So that's an interesting question. High school, that was a really long time ago. I'm from New Orleans originally. And so in high school, all I wanted to do was join the Peace Corps. And that somehow didn't work out for my life plan. Mm-hmm. So instead, I, went to college, got married, had a family. And so I was in the corporate world for most of my young adult life. Right. Until Hurricane Katrina changed everything.
Is that right? That's an interesting thing. I don't want to leave it there, but I just wanted to step back because I had a question, because you mentioned college there. You went into religion and religious studies. What was your thoughts there? What did you want to do with that?
Yeah, so that was my second attempt at college. So I went to college right after high school. I didn't last very long. Mm-hmm. I was itching to be an adult. Don't do that, kids. But anyway, when I went back to school at 28, I had decided to go into religious education and ministry. I had a real desire to help teenagers. Mm-hmm. And I thought if I could get young adults, adolescents, to understand that it's up to us to make the world a better place, that it's not something that's coming from government or beyond. It is up to us to make those changes. That was my draw to the Peace Corps. And so that's really what I was interested in. As it turns out.
So from 18 to 28 there, you developed this as you became an adult at 28, 18, you're talking, you saw a need that, if I was a little better equipped, maturity-wise, mentally, at 18, 19, 20, is that kind of what you had in thought?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it was important for me to, like I said, to become an adult. I really wanted a family, mm-hmm. and that sort of came first. But that deep desire to be a teacher, which is really all I've ever wanted to do since I was a little kid. Right. That was always what I dreamt of. And so when I went back to school at 28, I thought, now I had a corporate career, I had my kids, I was married, and I thought now I can really go and make a difference for young people. Mm-hmm. And so when I finished school, I realized I had no desire to actually teach kids of any age. So I really love working with adults. And so my time at Loyola,
which sometimes can't be much different.
It depends on the adults. You're right. But my interest in human psychology, what makes us tick, that was really my interest. I studied world religion because I was really curious as to how we make meaning in the world. And no matter where you go throughout history or where you go throughout the world, we're all still, trying to find our way. What's it all about? Why are we here? What's our purpose? And is there anything greater and bigger
this way Angie and I could talk on forever, because I kind of have the same thing. What makes people tick? Yes. Why do people do what they do, and so forth? I'm like, yeah. So I noticed but after college you kind of went in, if I saw it correctly, into the hospitality.
Yes.
Planning. Is that just something you just got a job in? initially to draw some income? Or?
Well, I was always in the banking career. My first banking job was when I was 17.
Okay.
So I really never left banking. And so the company that I worked for had diversified and was putting ATMs in hotels around the country. And I was in charge of our hotel division.
Okay.
So when you go to a hotel and there's an ATM with a $5 service charge, that was me. That was me. That was me. But, the hotels demanded a large percentage of that commission. So that's what that was about. But, yeah, so that's how I ended up in roundabout way in the hotel business. So I got to travel all over the country. It was wonderful. I met some great people and saw some amazing cities. And it was a lot of fun. But eventually I was still drawn back to something else. I just didn't know what it was. That's why I hired my first coach.
So is this when Hurricane Katrina comes in now and makes this change for you, forces this change? Or how do you evolve into become an agent?
Well, I had hired a coach. I was in this company, this corporation. I was the highest producing VP that we had in sales, and I was the lowest paid. Now, coincidentally, I was also the only woman in the good old boys club. So I had a big chip on my shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
And so I hired a coach. Her name is Jane Cranston. She's still a great executive coach out of New York. And on our second call, she said, you need to work for yourself. I said, you're crazy. She said, you're never going to be happy and you're never going to make any money until you work for yourself. So I sort of just tucked that away, but still kept looking for that next corporate position.
Right.
Then Hurricane Katrina hit. And I found myself in El Paso, Texas. We relocated temporarily out there so I could put my daughter back into school. And there, just sort of did a lot of soul searching. And I'll never forget one day I sat on the back patio of the house we were living in, looking up at the Sandia Mountains. And I just did one of those, what am I supposed to do with my life?
Right.
And my phone rang, and it was my mother. And my mother said, you need to get into real estate.
Just out of the blue.
For me, out of the blue. Obviously not maybe for the universe.
But for mom, like you'd never had that conversation
never
before.
Had that conversation.
Isn't that's so crazy?
She had met a real estate agent at a weekend party. She lived in Pensacola, Florida. And she said, if this woman can do it, you can absolutely crush it.
Right.
And so I moved back to New Orleans, quit my corporate job, and got my real estate license when, by the way, a majority of the homes in the New Orleans area were damaged.
Right.
Most beyond repair. So I don't know what I was thinking there. But plus the market had crashed. It was 2006. So things were really starting it hadn't crashed, but we were headed that direction.
Right.
So I got into real estate in mid 2006.
So how long did you actually spend in real estate, and how many years before you came? I think it was 2011, 12 you came this way?
I moved to Florida full-time in 2012.
So 5 or 6 years there, you got double jeopardy. You got all these houses, and I know a lot of those people probably never went back to their houses. Some had insurance, probably most didn't.
Well, no, most people in New Orleans would have had insurance. Did they have enough? Who knows? But yeah, I mean, part of what happened there is there was so much tension, and there were lawsuits because, there was the argument with the insurance companies, is it
hurricane or
flooding?
flood?
Yeah. So it went back and forth. I mean, people fought for years to try to get resolution on their claims because did the water come up? Was it because the levees broke? Was it hurricane? I mean, it was a mess. But anyway, so the housing market was a bit of the Wild West when I got into
So, I mean, I think everybody, hopefully, that is listening right now is going, okay, and you got the market about, hit its peak, at least here in Florida, 2006. You started to see prices drop, and then you had the complete debacle of 2008. What does it look like doing business in the greater New Orleans area?
Yeah, well, so what's interesting is the people in New Orleans, they love life more than any people on the planet, I think. And so New Orleans is known for parties and all of that stuff, and that is part of what goes on there. But I always say that the people of New Orleans are like toddlers. They will fight to go to sleep at night because they want to grab every last minute that they can. There's something else they could do, right?
Right.
But as soon as they finally hit the pillow, they're out.
Right.
So that's the people of New Orleans. You cannot keep them down. They love life, and they fought to get that city back.
Right.
And so even people whose homes were completely demolished. I mean, in the beginning, you know, they were carrying around bags of money, and they would have bought anything at any price just to not have to leave the city. But most people did rebuild and come back. In fact, New Orleans is, you know, stronger and better than ever because of Hurricane Katrina. But it was a little bit insane to get into the market when you were selling homes that had water up to the roof.
Right.
And, you know,
Can't get conventional lending. I mean,
it's a mess.
yeah. I can imagine you talk about, and, you know, the agents talk about today being creative.
Yeah.
I can only imagine you had to be extremely creative, know people that had money, especially if they needed to borrow money, because the typical lender would not lend on that home because of its condition.
That's right.
Oh, man.
That's right. It was a mess, but it was a lot of fun because it was so fulfilling to help families come back home, you know, get their kids back in school when everything finally reopened.
Yes, that's why you were talking about helping people and how they think and everything. We've one of my other guests that has been on the podcast, we were talking about agents being therapists. I can only imagine in New Orleans post-Katrina, you are a therapist.
Yes, yeah. And I'll tell you, it was great having had that experience at Loyola, because since my focus was on psychology, development, sociology, spirituality, all of those things, I was able to really help people, you know, with their mindset around the whole thing, because
Right.
people had been devastated. You know, they lost everything.
Right.
So it took a lot of patience and, like you said, creativity to really help people embrace moving and, you know, coming back, rebuilding.
All right, so let's dig deep. You just got your license. Do you remember your first sale?
I absolutely do. It's hilarious. It's so funny.
Go ahead.
You know, I didn't know what to expect. I had, you know, I didn't really know anybody in real estate, but my very first transaction was a friend of my husband at the time. He had a family home that had been damaged in the storm and burned. So it was basically a brick shell
I would
with
say
trees
so.
growing up out of the middle of it.
Oh, God.
And so I listed that property for $25,000, and it was kind of on a busy street corner. And I remember going to put the sign, you know, in the yard and took a picture. It was my first sign. By the time I got to the office, I had an offer. And I thought, this is so easy. This is amazing. I sold a house my very first day, you know.
Right.
You know, of course,
Well,
it was not that easy for every transaction thereafter, but I'll never forget it. $25,000, I had an offer. We were golden. They thought I'd hung the moon because I sold this house for them.
Which was really a lot.
Yeah, it was really
which
a
they
lot.
probably plowed over and started from the beginning.
No, actually,
Had to
years later,
get the
you know,
tree trunk out of the basement.
They did. I mean, there were snakes, you name it. They were all there.
Oh, that's crazy. As an agent, you know, at this level, because we have a lot of agents, and I know you have a great fan following of younger agents right now. Look back at that time. You got your first sale, and it doesn't even sound like you really even interacted with the buyer at all. You didn't have it was your sign in the yard, and they wanted that lot. It sold itself, but you had to start developing yourself. What do you think was your strength at that time that ramped you up to your success in New Orleans? What was your biggest strength?
Yeah, it's easy. Number one, I focused on relationships. So I had been in New Orleans almost my entire life. So I focused on just developing relationships. At the time, you know, ignorance is bliss, they say. I was so excited that I had gotten into real estate that I told everybody.
Right.
Luckily, I also hired a coach. So I had been working with the corporate coach. I now switched to a real estate coach, Joe Stump, with by referral only. You may
So
be
how long have you been in the industry and you hired your coach?
the day one.
Right in the real estate industry, you knew right away because of your past experience in the corporate world with a coach, you knew that to accelerate your learning curve was to hire a coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was not even an option to not have a coach. I had a coach for the last 3 years. So what, by referral only, Joe Stump, what he allowed me to do was systematize my excitement and passion for helping people into marketing and all of the strategies associated with building a database and nurturing that database. And that is hands down what made me successful. In addition, when I made the move to Keller Williams in 2007, I remember one day I walked into the team leader's office and there was a stack of manuals in the corner. And I picked them up. I flipped through them. It was like manuals on how to sell real estate. Because, they don't teach you that in real estate school. And so I asked him, I said, what are these? And he said, oh, it's a course, courses for real estate. I said, who's teaching them? He said, no one. I said, I'll do it. You master what you teach.
Right,
so
right. Yes.
I always tell people, if you want to learn something,
you got to teach it.
Teach it.
Yeah.
And so I just started teaching right out of the book.
Right.
And so I think it was a combination of those three things: nurturing a database of relationships, hiring a coach, and doing the training.
So I know Keller Williams obviously today, promotes the whole education amongst other things that they add when you as being an agent with them. Was that kind of that stack of manuals coming from the executives,
Yes.
From
that
Keller
was
Williams,
corporate.
their successes they put down, but they hadn't really formalized it yet. Just kind of put it in some outlines?
It was pretty formalized. It's just that in our office at that point, nobody had stepped up to teach. And so, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent is the Bible for real estate. It's not a Keller Williams book. It's a real estate book.
Right.
And so from that text was created, at the time it was called Camp 443. And it was to help you get 4 listings and 4 sales in 3 months.
I heard another great Keller Williams agent mention that on my podcast.
Yeah.
The 443 program.
The 443, and then it subsequently became Ignite. So, so I just started teaching, and people came. New agents, existing agents, they were craving additional support and training because remember, this is now 2007, 2008. Things are getting tough.
Right.
It's getting scary out there. And when I would go into the office to teach, I was bringing some energy and excitement. And I will distinctly remember people would stand around, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I would turn and go the other direction. Right. I was like, I'm just not participating in this recession.
Right.
I got to go out and help people. I got to make a living.
There's no doubt. I think that probably obviously the negative thing about being in the office is if you do have that going on, that fire, that has to be put out right away.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which translates me into something you and I have discussed many times in our weekend with the John Maxwell group a couple of years ago. Personal development and learning how to take that in as you mentioned earlier. You went out, looked at the mountain, and your mom called, and you took that as a sign.
Yeah.
Some people want to push that away instead of really thinking about, is that a sign or not? And I think many of us see signs, but we turn the other way because we don't want to truly have the faith in it that it is a sign. Because all of us have crazy stories like that, and I could go on. I don't want to, but you do a lot of personal development. Tony Robbins, John Maxwell, I know are 2 favorites of yours. What is your favorite way? Are you a book reader? Are you a podcast listener? What do you do to keep that energy going?
Yeah, it's funny. I attend every event that I can attend that Tony does, and also that the John Maxwell team puts on. And so at this point, I think I've done 16 live events with Tony Robbins since 2012.
Wow.
And I've done 3 or 4 of the Maxwell conferences as well.
Your gas tank is totally overflowing still.
Yeah, it's funny because...
You ever come down from Tony Robbins?
No, never. That's why you have to keep going. In fact, it's funny because someone once told my mother, she's so successful, why does she keep going to those Tony Robbins events? And she said, that's why she's so successful, because she keeps going. You don't go to the gym once, right? You have to keep going. I listen to a podcast, at least one every day. Sometimes even on the weekends. And I read voraciously. I read, books, and I listen on Audible. So I don't listen to the radio. I do have some Spotify playlists that I do love when I am really taking some downtime.
Right.
But it's interesting because when I find that because I work with my mind, it's not like a job where you could go home and leave that job behind.
Right.
Like if you were digging ditches, when you go home, you're not going to dig any more
put the
ditches.
shovel away and you go home.
When you work with your mind, I could do that all the time.
Right.
So it's, for me, There's a quote I love that says something along the lines of, I want to work where the lines between work and play are so blurred that no one can tell the difference.
Right.
And I love what I do. So that is funny. My daughter, the last time I was back in Baton Rouge visiting my grandkids, I came out of the bathroom once, and my daughter and son-in-law said, "Do you ever just take a shower?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, every day." They said, "Well, without listening to a podcast or a book?" And I'm like, "Why? Wasted time." I could be learning something.
Exactly. I mean, you're working out, the headset on. I think a lot of people, I wish I was as disciplined as you. I pour on. I've been a podcast junkie for the last months, and putting that on. So between work and here, and when I'm working out, I've got another podcast listening on, because I notice every one I've got, it actually brings me something to talk about. And we're talking here to talk about during the show that I find interesting anyway, and hopefully our listeners do. But when you try to reach out there and talking to some of the whether real estate, anyone in business, really, it doesn't matter, everyone in life, but they look at listening to Tony Robbins or John Maxwell, who are very positive people, go, "Oh, well, those guys got a lot of money, that's why they can be positive." And to me, it's like losing weight, or you hear the stories of these people that made it great, or people who were one step away, who quit what they were doing just an hour, a day, a week before, instead of continuing what they're doing. And from what I find in the personal development world, there's energy, and it's positive energy. When someone loses weight, they feel good. People see them differently. It changes your business, and you kind of get on that high, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And for you, it's you're exercising your brain every day, and I'm totally with it. And that's where I think a lot of people misinterpret personal development. I don't need personal development. I'm already developed. Developed with what? You're listening to people who are successful, who are, yes, they're making money off sharing their secrets of success, but it's like this whole circle of life. They are giving you the energy so you can take the energy and create your own circle and continue it on. And I think a lot of people, personal development, I don't have time for that. Well, we waste a lot of time. I'm seeing, stupid YouTube videos that people spend time, TV shows, Housewives or whatever. That's fun to watch every once in a while. But if you're spending more time watching Housewives of wherever, right, then it's taking 10 minutes a day, or 10 minutes or 30 minutes a day listening to a podcast while you're working out or driving from one location to another. That's where I lose that disconnect. But I think that's where you see the difference of successful people and people who are just treading water.
Yeah, I agree. And we have a rule at Keller Williams that says your business only grows to the extent that you do.
Yes.
And so one of my deepest held beliefs is that, God's gift to us is our potential, and our gift to God is realizing that potential. Somebody said that to me once, and I thought, that's really powerful. And so that's what drives me. It's what drives me to do my own work on myself and to continually learn and grow, because I'm trying to step into my potential, which I believe is limitless. Mm-hmm. And so the work that I do with others is the same, right? I believe that every one of us has way more potential than we're currently realizing. And so to not do everything in our power to realize that potential, we really are missing the mark.
That is so powerful. If you just listen, you need to, when this show is over and recorded, go back and play that again. If anyone's listened to David Goggins, he's, I don't know if you've seen it, he's on YouTube. He has a lot of YouTube videos. He's the guy who was the Navy SEAL. He weighed 280 pounds, went in and told everyone, "I'm going to be a Navy SEAL." And the recruiter laughed at him. And obviously, you can go in and listen to it, and it's all here. That's what he tells you. And this last story, I was listening to him, going, he's ranting. He's very passionate about what he does, but because he found the switch, and the mental switch. And when he was talking about wanting to qualify for a 150-mile-an-hour run, and he had to go talk to someone who allows you in, not anyone, they're going to let anyone in. And the guy says, "Well, I don't know if you're going to qualify." And he hadn't been working out a lot. He was still a SEAL at the time. And the guy said, well, this weekend there's a 100-mile run. If you can complete that, I'll let you do my 150-mile run. Well, he thought it was 100 miles, like run a marathon a day, sleep, whatever, camp out, and run it. No, it's 100 miles.
Wow.
Nonstop. And at 70, I forget what it was, with 25 miles to go, he's like completely exhausted. Bottom line of the story is, and you have to listen to his video to listen to the rest of that story, but the bottom line, he said, when your mind is telling you to quit, you're like only not even 50% there. You can push your body further and further and further. And to take 10 minutes, as a lot of personal development books say, read 10 pages a day or 10 minutes a day, whatever it is, you're trying to say you can't get up 10 minutes earlier, you can't reach over and hit the switch on your 30-minute ride into work or whatever, and listen to something that's going to make you better. Think about that for a moment. This is a guy who ran 100 miles nonstop, and he was literally walking. He had 26 miles to go, he said, and his wife got him up, said, hey, you got to. So he's moving along, he's shuffling, and his wife said, with 19 miles to go, he says, you're not going to make it unless you run, because you had to do it in 24 hours.
Wow.
And he ran the last 19 miles and made it. Because he overcame the brain.
Yeah. Tony says, when you can't, you must.
Yeah.
And when a person has that mindset of growth, it's a lot easier to get to that place where when you can't, you must. Mm-hmm. And then you can carry on. And it's true, 80% of our success is what goes on between our ears. Right. Only 20% is the mechanics of what we do. And a lot of people come into real estate, they come to coaching, they just want another script or another tactic, and all those things are fantastic. But if you don't get the mindset right, then you're just going to have to grind your way through. Mm-hmm. And I'm so sick of that word.
I'm going to transition. Obviously, talk more about the coaching bit, but this is a great transition because I assume you run into people all the time. I'm not attractive enough. I'm overweight. I can only be this good of an agent. I can't be that agent that's, we can name some people that people look up to in the area that are constant, consistent, very successful agents in their numbers and so forth. What do you say to them? What do you to bring them down? What are some of the things that you do to kind of get the little fire started with them?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important to have heroes and mentors and people that we look up to. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of people, when they're doing what you're talking about, they're comparing themselves, which is very different.
Very good.
And I always say comparison is the thief of joy. So there's always going to be somebody.
Comparison is the thief of joy. Write that quote down there for me.
There's always going to be somebody younger, better looking, faster, richer, smarter. Right. There's always going to be somebody better, right? So it's really about looking at your goals, tapping into your potential, and then executing. One of the things I recognized really early on, because I was doing so much training and my business was growing, and people would come to me and say, can you help me? And I would tell them, what do you mean help you? I just taught the class. Do what's in the book. And I would get similar responses. It would be, well, you don't understand. I can't do that because, and then they would start listing the reasons why they couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. I have to pick my kids up every day after school. I take care of my father who's ill. I have another job. The list was endless. I'm not young enough. I'm not good looking enough. I can't afford it, whatever, all of the stories. And what I recognized pretty quickly was that it wasn't information. It wasn't more information that they needed. It was inspiration. They needed somebody to help inspire them to step into their potential. That's a very unique individual conversation. So there's lots of great training out there for mortgage lenders, real estate agents, any business, mm-hmm. I'm sure. And people definitely need to avail themselves of that training. But when it comes to executing, that's a completely different matter. That's very individual. And so, Nietzsche said that when a man has a strong enough why, he can endure almost any how. And that's really what this is about. I mean, people in real estate are, they're self-employed.
Yeah. No
matter whether they're on a team with a brokerage or have their own, they're self-employed. So they've got to go out and execute. And if they don't have a strong enough reason, if they are not clear about their values and their personal goals, then they will often not be able to execute sustainably.
So I want to somewhat side to this, but I think it's related, because John Maxwell often talks about scarcity versus abundance. And a lot of people have this mindset, well, there's only so many homes in this area, and so and so over here is just a superstar, and they're going to get so many of those statistically. I'm only good for one a month or two a month or something like that. We're not really understanding that they're on that scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. We can look at the number of agents. At the last count I heard, it was 1.2 million or so licensed realtors in the U.S.
1 out of every 120 people I heard.
Yeah, it's kind of insane.
Yeah.
So if you just want to do that math and look at the number of units that have been transacted and how many agents are in your board and so on and so forth, it could get really depressing. And yet, when you come from an abundance mindset, it's like one of your former guests, Getty, said. He said, my goal is to help one person a day. And so that's something that I agree with and teach. And helping them could be anything. Perhaps they just need a great plumber or roofer, and you know someone. Mm-hmm. Perhaps they're a new family that's moved to town, and you could introduce them to some other of your friends or clients that they could become good friends with. Maybe they just need some advice, some information. Maybe they need a connection with a great lender. I believe that if you set out to help people and come from that place of contribution, that there's going to be all of the transactions that you could possibly need or want will come your way, because you become the go-to person. People know that they can come to you for advice, for information, for support and encouragement. And so when we come from an abundance mindset, we're going to find everything that we need and then some. Now, you have to execute on the strategies. You have to have a solid marketing plan, a solid business plan. Is that where a lot of, they read all the books, they've gone to your trainings where they're just physically there and go, and they're writing down all these notes. But now how do you take it from the notes to actually execution? It might be a social media campaign or something. That's where I think a lot of them get the disc. Okay, who do I go to next? Yeah.
Is that where your coaching can come in and help?
Yeah. So let's think about this. All of us have taken a class or a seminar or webinar, whatever, came away with a manual full of notes, great ideas. And then we get back to work, put that on the desk. Eventually it ends up on the bookshelf. I got to read my emails, and then you never get back to it. Right. Eventually it ends up on the bookshelf, the $1 million bookshelf. It's got $1 million of ideas that never get executed. And so they left with the best of intentions. But the law of diminishing intent says the farther you get away from the site of setting a goal before taking action, the less likely you are to ever take action.
Yes.
And so for me, that's why I believe so strongly in what I do. Because the reason I've been successful in real estate and now as a coach and have had a successful coaching business for 10 years now is because I always had a coach, someone who was there to support me as I implemented, to hold me accountable for implementing, to help me measure the results I was getting, make the shifts I needed to make, and continue to move forward and keep my mind right the whole time. Because I'm like most of us, I'm my own worst enemy and my own worst critic.
Right. We are.
So without having a coach there to support me, I'm a product of the product. And so that's what makes the difference. Can some agents become successful without a coach? Absolutely. We see that all the time. But I think what's critical is if someone really wants to align who they are as a person and what their purpose in being here is with an incredible business, you got to have support. It's too easy in real estate to just get swallowed up by this business. Everybody who's watching this and listening to this knows you can work 8 days a week in real estate. No doubt about it. There's always somebody out there who wants to see a house or put their house on the market, and that could happen any day, any time. And buyers and sellers are very selfish for a good reason. They're in the middle of their largest financial transaction of their lives.
Right.
It's their home, whether they're selling or buying. It's a critically important time to them. And I know that the stress of buying or selling real estate, it's up there. It's like up there with divorce and cancer. It's very stressful. So the consumer is very concerned with themselves, and rightfully so, they should be. The agent who doesn't understand how to create space, boundaries, margins between their business and their life can find themselves consumed with the business, and then they lose touch with who they are. So I think it's super important to have that alignment.
You've had numerous 10 years now coaching. What if you were to write a book about your steps in coaching and the different clients you had, what would you say would be probably the most common denominator of those people that you've coached? Whether it's the level where they're at in real estate, what do you think they all kind of have in common?
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody who is a coach to, just like it is for everybody who's in real estate or mortgages, to sort of identify who that ideal client is. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the first time I attended Business Mastery with Tony Robbins back in 2015 is when I really realized that I was trying to coach everybody and anybody. I just wanted to help people.
Right.
And I knew they were suffering. They were losing out on their time with their family. They weren't getting all that freedom and flexibility that they signed up for when they got into real estate.
Yeah, right.
and they really wanted to help people and make money. They wanted it all.
Right.
And so I was trying to help anybody. And I recognized at Business Mastery that I really had an ideal client. I just hadn't identified who they were. So the people that I love working with, they're already successful in real estate. So they are already doing 3, 4, 5 million minimally. A lot of them are doing much more than that, but
or have large teams or
correct. So they are already successful in real estate, and they believe that they have more potential. They just don't know how to get there, because in their minds they have somehow identified more business with more work, and they're already working 8 days a week.
Right.
So they're not quite sure how to get there, but they know that they're capable of more. So I don't work with people who believe that they can't be successful, they're broken and need fixing. They don't know.
They need a little more deeper psychology.
They need some different support.
Right.
So
maybe go to Tony Robbins a few times to get launched.
That's right. I work with people that already know they're rock stars, and they're just ready to take it to the next level. Maybe they're ready to start a team or grow a team. But they know that in order to get to that next level, they've got to break through some limiting beliefs that they have. They've got to change what they're doing.
Sure.
They've got to think a little bit differently, and they know they need that support, that encouragement. So I consider myself a cheerleader, a challenger. Like, I'm there to kick ass.
Right.
Like, let's go, let's make this happen.
Right.
So they already have to have a level of confidence if they're going to benefit most from working with me.
So that leads us right into some we talked about prior to the conversation. Tell us about some success stories.
Yeah, so I have a client that I've been working with for about 5 years now. And when this person came to me, they had been in the real estate business for a long time. They were in business with a family member, and that relationship had gone sideways. Mm-hmm. And so they left that family organization and started their own real estate business. And they were having success, but their business really wasn't structured for long-term sustainable growth and success. And so when we started working together, this person really was looking for strategy on how to build the business. And I do believe that this person was really looking to sort of stick it to dad. Like, I'll prove I can do this on my own.
So he had a little bit of a why.
He had a little bit of a why. But I also knew that in order for him to grow a great business and a great life, that at some point that relationship was going to have to be mended. Mm-hmm. And so we started to work on the business, but I just kept bringing the relationship piece back to the table. And so fast forward 5 years, this person will likely do $1 million in GCI this year with just one assistant and a marketing sidekick. And is married, has a great relationship with his dad, and is continuing to see growth as a man, as a business owner, as a leader, as a realtor. And that's the kind of stuff that just makes me so happy to do what I do. I have another client came to me, also was very successful, had hired a real estate coach with a national coaching company, and really felt like they weren't listening to her. And so she's very well connected, knows a lot of people, and they had convinced her to buy an online lead generation program, which required her to devote time, energy, and resources to something she really wasn't interested in. And so, and for this person, her family is everything to her. And in fact, she almost died, having children. It's a big deal. And she's very public about that story now, but she wasn't going to let anything get in the way of her family. And, those of you that are chasing online leads, it can be a great way to enhance your business. But if you already have a strong database of relationships, that's the gold mine. So on our first call, I really helped her tap into what it was that she was looking for out of her life and her business. And so we got away from the scripts and the online lead generation things, and we just dialed in.
That could burn you out.
Absolutely. Plus, she was spending, if I remember correctly, this was also about 4 years ago, like $1,000 a month. It was absolutely unnecessary.
I know some are spending a lot more than that.
A lot more than that. So, fast forward to today, she's there for her kids. She is building a very nice real estate business. She's a single agent team. It's her and an admin. And she does fantastic events, gets tons of people out. And she's very well connected. Her farm, she farms her own neighborhood, and that area has, she's really crossed over. Now that's her farm is actually part of her sphere of influence, along with her database. So she loves her work. She's built a fantastic business in alignment with her core values of family. And she didn't have to give any of that up to go chasing something else that, someone was trying to fit her into a box. It's like, this is how you build a real estate business.
Right.
So she will also have a very successful year. Most of my clients, the first year we work together, a lot of them will double their business just because they're getting streamlined and systematized. And then after that, we shoot for like a 20 to 25%.
Well, aren't they getting
increase.
we talk about, and I know you do because we just talked about it here earlier, the energy they get from the personal development.
Yes.
So I'm sure you guys share, or maybe you can give them reading assignments or something of that nature, or put them on to something. Hey, this is a great person for you to listen to, and that sort of thing. And they get all of a sudden they get this energy going in, and the abundance mindset versus scarcity, and hey, I can, if I just move my business 10%, like the individual you're just talking about, a million, if I move my, just 10%, for the most people, for most agents, that 10% is their whole year. And it only takes a couple inches. And I think those agents that are starting off, you have to realize when you say comparison is the thief
of joy.
And they see that agent's been doing it for 20 years in the office, selling whatever, and just get that first deal. Or as get us glazed, as you were referring to, help one person out a day. And start with that first step of the journey, and you will realize that working your warm circle, you're the, I will brag about my wife. I've watched her here in 2 years that she's been an agent now, working her neighborhood, working her circle, seen as a leader of the moms in our neighborhood, and then we got involved with a condo complex, which we own some units in investment-wise, but she is the go-to agent now because, one, she makes the connection, builds the relationship, how she presents their home as if she's trying to, as if that person had 100 places to sell and she's trying to earn their business on that first one. We'll bring up Ryan Serhan here. How many times has Ryan or his co-host on the show, they're trying to get that one deal in that building so they can get the whole building, right, for the developer. Yes. And so they put it all in. If you do that on every one of your deals, you'll see your business explode. One, then it's 2 a month, then it's 3, then it's 4 and 5 and 6, and it's 10 deals a month. And now you are hiring help because you can't handle all the amount of paperwork and so forth that's needed.
That's right. That's right. Gary Keller says that until you master your database, everything else is a distraction.
Yes. And
this is a relationship business. And so it's not that you may not ever have to knock on a door or do an open house. Those are all, certainly things that you can do. But I always tell people, anything that you do, the goal is to create a relationship. You know, Mike Kim is a great branding expert that I listen to, and he said, I don't think about sales as closing a deal, but opening a relationship. And that, I think that's really important, because when you meet someone, get them in your database, right? And then stay in touch with them. It's pretty simple.
Would you agree, from an agent standpoint, there's that analogy in the retail world, that a person who has a bad experience will tell 10 people, and then the person who has a good experience may tell somebody. Where I think it's kind of the opposite in the real estate agent world. Someone has a bad experience because technically they chose the agent, right?
Right.
And they have a bad experience, they don't really talk about it. But man, if you've been a superstar agent, they're telling their friends. Their friends bring it up. And if that one person can get you one more deal that year, a couple more the next, because you're staying in contact with them, saying happy birthday, reaching out to them, keeping that circle warm. I know some agents, they're out boating, they're out having dinner with them, they're having them over for barbecues, because that's just the type of people they are. They like to entertain in that realm, and their business is just exploding.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, because it's relationships. You're in people's homes, right? And home is a sacred place for most of us. That is, where we raise our family. It's where we make love, where we make war, where we raise kids, which is a little bit of both, right? And I think it's important, and that's one of the perks of real estate, is that you do get to be friends with your clients, and you do have them in your homes. I remember I heard a couple talking about events, because I'm really big on client events, and they said that one of the things they tell their clients when they have a big event at their home every winter, and they say, our goal in real estate was to work with the kind of people that we would be honored to have in our home. Right. And here you are.
Right.
We've been successful.
And we attract like kind.
Absolutely.
You start working that circle, you attract other people who are like you, and of course they have friends that are like them.
That's exactly right.
And then you're inviting them all into your home.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
Excellent. We went through like 5 or 6, and I didn't even have to ask the question. Do you coach someone who has a team versus, say, just sounded like you had a solo agent, they had their admin or something. What's kind of the difference in coaching, or is there?
Yeah, there is a difference. So I coach several teams, and they're teams of varying sizes. And in that scenario, we're focused a lot on leadership. And honestly, that's why I added the John Maxwell certification to my toolkit.
Right.
Because when I got certified through Tony Robbins and the Robbins Madonna's coaching training, that was really to be able to understand the psychology of success and be able to teach that technology to others, right? To be able to teach the psychology of success. And so because John Maxwell is so known for his gifts as a leadership trainer and coach and mentor, I really wanted to be able to add that, because just because someone's a great salesperson doesn't mean they're a great leader.
No.
And vice versa.
Right.
And unfortunately, coming from corporate America, there were too many situations where the star salesperson got promoted to manager of the sales team, and then guess what happened? Sales plummeted. Because you took your star guy or girl out of the field, and because they had generally some sort of fire that can't necessarily be taught to others, they would just get frustrated.
Like showing up to work on time?
Yeah. Yeah. So they had some sort of fire that they couldn't necessarily translate to other salespeople. They weren't necessarily a coach, a leader. And so, in real estate, it's the same thing. When an agent gets to that point where they want to start building a team or growing a small team, let's say, they have to really focus on leadership. And that is a completely different skill set than the hunter, right? Most salespeople are hungry, and they are hunters. They are out hunting for the deal.
I use that same analogy here in the office.
They love it. They love
I originate on the hunter. There are people that will process and skin the deer and process the meat. I got to go out and get the next deal. That's what I do. That's right. Angie, I want to when we talked about Ryan Serhant, so all of my guests here, I give this book out if you haven't read it. Ryan Serhant, Big Money Energy. This is actually his second book. Selling Like Sirhan. I'm going to order some of those, but this is his most recent one that came out earlier this year.
Awesome.
Enjoy
Thank
that. There, Ryan Sirhan from $1 Million Listing, as I talk about on every show, because he's written 2 great books, and he has a ton of personal development. You want to talk about a guy who did personal development? That is, I mean, he could be Tony Robbins if they could switch places. I think sometimes
Oh, wow.
because he can be motivating as well. But Angie, how can someone, if they're interested in learning more about your coaching? I know you're working on the new website, just Angi Bell, just ANGI Bell.com. That site's under reconstruction. So those on Facebook Live, it'll hopefully be out by the end of the month. The podcast listeners that are listening to the audio version, by the time this goes out, should be very close to AngieBell.com coming back online. So all your URLs are coming in there. What's the best way to reach you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn if you are in the social scene, or you can just reach out to me, Angie at AngieBell.com. It's pretty simple.
Yep.
I'm
sure your website will also have a contact link there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they can just go there and sign up, and I'll reach out to them quickly.
Right. I think she's a huge resource. Obviously, you've heard some successes. She's very busy in her business, but definitely someone to tap into. And maybe a full coaching isn't exactly. You just need to kind of, maybe a short session. I'm sure you have some people come in. Maybe you consult with them. Do you ever tell someone maybe that isn't the route, like kind of like where you were told, or you need to go work for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, when I do a discovery call with folks, one of the things I'm looking for is what are their personal goals? What are their professional goals? And are they in alignment? And do I think that I can help them? Are they ready? And so in addition to my one-on-one coaching, I am in the process of creating some sort of very small group breakthrough programs. So for some people, they may not be ready to jump into the one-on-one coaching, and my dance card stays full. So they may not want to be on the wait list for very long, so they are able to jump into a small group where we work together for about 90 days on specific topics. So I have small group breakthroughs coming up later this year on connection, so on how to connect with people to grow your database, to grow your business, and on leadership. Because those, as I was saying, that's
everyone
really
communicates, few connect. Is that you're going to use that? Yes.
Yeah, and leadership.
John Maxwell.
Yeah. So that may be more appropriate for some folks, and then, but I'm always happy to talk to anybody and at least point them in the right direction and maybe give them some advice on what they need to do next.
Angie, I appreciate you coming by today.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure being here, Tracy.
Excellent.